Seems fair to me. Well, if you don't know what fair is, you can't make it.
Donnybrook is made possible by the members of the 9 Network.
Thanks for joining us for another edition of Donnybrook. Boy, do we have some topics to kick around on this edition. Thanks to our friends at the Gatesworth who are making this program possible, as they do week in and week out. Thank you so much. Let's meet the panelists, starting with the media veteran herself from KTRS, Wendy Wiese. From the St. Louis Post-Dispatch, sporting his Cubs tie, Mr. Bill McClellan. And wearing Cardinal Red from the Riverfront Times, Ray Hartmann. More Cardinal Red from the St. Louis American and STLmag.com, Alvin, Reid, and yeah, it is opening day.
Opening loss.
Unfortunately,
opening and closing.
Well, 161 more games for the Cardinals this year.
That's right.
But the Cubs, I think, won. Did they not? Or?
I assume they did.
Yeah.
We'll lose a few during the course of the year, but.
Kind of a sad note that we'll start this week's program with Ray Hartmann, friend of the program, Kim Tucci, who was one of the owners of the Pasta House Company and a man who served on many civic boards and was known for his philanthropy and generosity and civic involvement, passed away this past week. In fact, the Donnybrook crew had dinner at his restaurant in University City not too long ago. You wrote a wonderful tribute to him in this week's Riverfront Times.
Well, thank you. He was a St. Louis original. He was just a great guy, and besides have built a very successful chain of restaurants that he and John Ferrara and Joe Fresta founded in '74, really was he and his wife Sharon were everywhere as raising money for good causes. But he was also a Democratic power broker, and he was known for being a fighter and a battler. And so he was kind of larger than life figure in the sense that he was not just just a civic leader. He was kind of a mover and shaker and often very controversial, but just a great guy and a real loss for St. Louis.
I first became familiar with him. I mean, obviously I was familiar with the pasta con broccoli well before I met Kim Tucci, but he was a big booster of visitation basketball 40 years ago when we were going to state, not we. I was an observer. But he was great to the sisters, and he was, trying to think of your lasting impression of him was somebody who just enjoyed life so much. He enjoyed the day-to-day, the mundane, the highs, the lows. He was just, that kind of a wonderful guy.
I will say, about 2 years ago, I was on the radio talking about 2 septuagenarian women who were carjacked on Christmas Eve, and he called me up after hearing the program and said, "Can I have their names?" Sure, why not? And next thing I knew, in the mail was a check for $1,000 written out to one of the victims. And he said, "My only request is don't tell anybody." Well, I've broken that, so I think people should know what a great guy he was. All right. Hey, let's begin the program starting with you, Alvin. Steve Steger, the county executive, is under investigation by the federal government. The rumors had been swirling for some time now. But Sam Page, a member of the county council, said that he saw the subpoenas looking for texts and emails and other records from various personnel in St. Louis County and from some of the executive departments like the Economic Development Partnership as well as the Port Authority. Is the county executive in trouble?
Well, you stole my thunder. I was going to say, how about that Sam Page? You're not supposed to disclose these things unless you just memorize it. So I thought that was
his nemesis.
Yeah, his
with
nemesis.
A capital M.
Right.
N. Yeah.
Well, is he in trouble? Well, let me put it this way. I told my wife, said, "Carmen, if I ever come in," and I said, "Hey, honey, no sweat, I'm not in trouble. I hired Scott Rosenblum to be my lawyer." She might be thinking, "Are you sure?" Right. I don't know. I would not like to be in the position that he's in right now because obviously, kind of where there's smoke, there's fire. And I do want to revisit that when he was elected and he was running for office, he was the clean guy, and everybody down there at the county executive office was corrupt. Well, I don't remember, subpoenas and record gathering and all this kind of stuff going on when Charlie Dooley was the county executive. Is he in trouble? I don't know, but should he be held to task for what has gone on since he took office? Absolutely, because it is off. It just seemed very odd and awfully fishy, and now it's officially odd and fishy, and it's being investigated.
Well, you can't blame a guy for getting a lawyer when you think that somebody might be looking at you, and that is money well spent hiring Scott Rosenblum. So we'll see. It's all interesting.
The Sam Page thing bothers me a little bit because, I mean, knowing that they have a lot of bad blood between them, we all understand that. But I guess I would have preferred that he keep quiet about this and let it, I don't know, come out through the proper channels rather than there's a little bit of a neener sense to it, and that I don't like to see in leadership in any area.
Yeah, well, I mean, this is ominous for Steve Stenger, and I don't begrudge anyone. It reminds me a little of the national situation with Mueller in the sense that people have the right to make the judgments they want politically about somebody, and the criminal. First of all, he hadn't been charged with anything at all, and if he were charged, he hasn't. He's got his due process. So it's way too early to assume that the fact that he hired the best defense attorney in town, which he did, doesn't mean he's guilty. But on the other hand, I think it's people are going to make political judgments as they will. And Sam Page is one of the people who's in line to become named county executive were Steve Stenger not to be there. So it isn't like he's some kind of honest broker in this.
Well, it's fun though. I disagree with you, Wendy, on not wanting to see Page. I like it when they're fighting amongst themselves.
Yeah.
And
Spoken like a columnist.
Yeah.
well, but it is.
No, you're
It's
right.
interesting.
I
Not only that,
right.
but I think Sam Page was ridiculed, and some members of the county council had said, 6 to 18 months ago, that federal agents had been following members of the executive department in an automobile, and I think some people made fun of that. And so now they see the subpoena, and it's not a rumor. They're saying to themselves, okay, I just want it out there. And it turns out it's Hal Goldsmith who's looking into it, and he's not a guy who is going to waste his time. He's an experienced assistant U.S. attorney, and as good an attorney as Scott Rosenblum is, I think that Hal Goldsmith is also quite worthy.
It is interesting, though, that we're really at a very preliminary stage. All they've done is subpoenaed, so we're not. Sometimes you don't normally hear that in the newspaper. In other words, usually by the time you're talking about the federal government, somebody's at least been charged, and then the question is given them due process. Nobody's even accused at this point.
Very early.
I think
Reid,
you need to emphasize.
Well, what do you think about the not-for-profit group Better Together, which we've been talking about for quite some time? That's the group that wants to merge the city and the county and form a 1.3 million resident municipality with one police chief and one assessor and one court system, et cetera, et cetera. Well, now for the second time, Ray, the group has gone back to Jefferson City to revise its proposal. There was a proposal originally that the county executive on the 1st of this year would be the metro mayor until 2024, and now the county executive as of the 1st of January 2021 will be a co-mayor for just 2 years till 2022, and then there will be an election. What's going on here?
Well, first of all, I'm not fond of the plan. I haven't changed my view of that, and for a lot of reasons, and we've rehashed them. One of the things I said on the show and wrote was I thought one of the worst elements of this in terms of arrogance was the idea that in 2022, assuming this passed, that in the fall of November 2022, the voters of the new metro city could be trusted to pick a city council, but not trusted to elect a mayor. And I thought that was so on its face ridiculous. And to their credit, I guess, I think you have to give them credit, they fixed that. Now, they may have fixed it because of Stenger's situation. Who knows why they fixed it. But you got to give them credit. Well, no, but I give them credit for fixing it because that was a major glaring deficiency. And I'm not going to criticize, I'm not going to say they should do it and then criticize them for doing what I said they should do.
What city has ever had a co-mayor? Have we ever had a co-president? Or do businesses have co-CEOs? What
You
is
can go
this?
back. Ancient Rome had they had 3.
And look how well that worked out.
Triumvirate or something. Triumph.
They didn't fix that.
It's just craziness.
Well, I thought it was a little unusual when Nancy Rice on radio said that if there is a dispute between the co-mayors, they can go to mediation or do something as simple as flip a coin, which I'm sure she got out of the John F. Kennedy School of Government at Harvard.
And if they slug it out, my money's on Lyda Cruz.
But this is what bothers me about this. You would think just in the course of your very basic 101 due diligence, right? that somebody would have brought up the fact that cars were following people and that there were these rumors swirling about Steve Stenger and the county council and all, and his office and the contracts and that kind of thing. That to me that's first-year law school stuff. I mean, in terms of due diligence. If they didn't know this and they still went ahead with this plan to, Steve Stenger's going to be the guy, even though now they have corrected it to their credit.
Well, I think they're just tone deaf, that they originally thought that this would be a strength that will put the county executive in charge, and maybe they'll get people from the county to think the county's running things, not realizing that Steve Stenger is not a tremendously popular county executive and now faces possible legal problems.
I don't think it's about, really, it shouldn't have been about Stenger. In other words, the idea that you could have a city pick its city council, but it's going to have an anointed mayor. I don't care who that is. It doesn't matter whether it's Stenger, whether it's Sam Page,
and that's what Nancy Rice said.
She was also quoted saying, well, we've been a little nerdy. And I don't think this is nerdy.
No.
I think it's
not too wonkish.
There was an air. You got to remember, a lot of this is driven by Rex Singfield's agenda. And so there's an arrogance to this and a disingenuous
honestly,
to it.
I think the whole thing is
and
designed to eliminate the earnings tax.
It is.
That's
and,
it.
And let's
That's it. This is our payback for not.
Can we remind people that something like 3/4 of the people in the city of St. Louis voted in favor of a tax on themselves,
Twice.
which is unheard of.
Twice.
And so I don't think people should assume the city earnings tax is such a bad thing.
Well,
the people have voted on it.
I would say also on the quotes, I guess, from the radio about how we've kind of learned that Steve Stenger is not all that, popular. Well, he won the general election fair and square, okay? But when you go back to the primary, which he narrowly won, and that's Democratic primary, now you add, 80% of the Republican voters in the county? I mean, that was right there to be seen, that the person that we are setting up to be the mega mayor is not popular in his own county. I mean,
Alvin.
and that's factual. That's not just people just talking. I mean, that's numbers.
And this responsiveness on the part of Nancy Rice and Better Together, I'm still thinking that all of the people who are opposed to Better Together are not going to look at that as a positive. They're going to say, "See, I told you,
Okay,
ducks
you
are
talked
not
to
in a
Nancy
row."
Rice on Monday.
We talked to
did you?
Nancy Rice on Monday.
Okay, now, Bill, I want to ask you about a development that came out today. That is that Washington University, one of the premier institutions of higher learning in the world, right in our own backyard, has announced it's going to study the Better Together plan. At the same time that its soon to be departing Chancellor Mark Wrighton is going to oversee the effort. What do you think about this?
It's like somebody's writing a script. I mean, they've got a better imagination than me. Right after Nancy Rice talks about the problem is we're too nerdy, the Washington U professors say, well, we'll take over. Like they're going to come in from watching the Indy 500 and study this. It struck me as ludicrous. And I say that with great respect for the Washington University professors, but if Better Together's problem is nerdiness, I'm not sure they're headed in the right direction now.
I think we've got your next project. It's a screenplay. I mean, this is screaming for a screenplay.
Well, this whole Better Together is just, it's a gift to somebody.
I would respectfully disagree because I think that WashU has some great minds there, and I don't think that this report has been researched. I talked to Dr. Terry Jones from the University of Missouri St. Louis, and he said, one problem with this Better Together report is they didn't have one researcher work on it, not one professional researcher.
Well, it's only our destiny. It's only our political destiny. Why would you want a researcher?
Well, why not? If you're going to have Mark Wrighton, what people respect is the guy is
the cheerleader.
Correct.
Yeah.
And that's I believe he had some relationship with Washington University, and I understand he's not there now. But to Bill's point, I mean, why not have the Show Me Institute research it while they're at it? I mean, it's like it'd be one thing if you brought together like all the SLU and even then it's late. But if you brought something other than an obvious partisan into this to study it, maybe you could make a case.
We don't know. I mean, the professors.
Well,
they might not be partisan.
It doesn't look.
But it's not going to impact the citizens. They're not going to say, "Oh wow, Washington University professors think this is a great idea."
Right.
People who are against us are not going to be impressed.
And I are they going to come back and say this is a horrific idea? I doubt that seriously. That's
Maybe they'll come back and they'll say that Washington University should pay property taxes since it's $1 billion, business, and
we should turn over our police
Charlie,
force, which we already we got first in line to keep our police force.
One thought, given that this is going to be decided apparently statewide, one place they could have gone seriously, if they wanted seriously to do academic research on this, which you can make a case, would be my alma mater. They could go to University of Missouri Columbia or somewhere out away from St. Louis, somewhere in Kansas City, whatever, to have an institution look at it that had no possible dog in the fight. Then you could at least have enough credibility in terms of independence that it would to me, that would have some more credibility. And if for example, in University of Missouri Columbia, they looked at it and said, this is not good, then outstate, you have a different argument. And I think it shouldn't be done in St. Louis at all.
Well, we could do that at the Hartmann Institute of Public
Right.
Policy in Columbia. Hey,
right.
Wendy, I want to ask you, speaking of statewide policy, the Post-Dispatch is reporting that there is a movement to increase sports betting across the land, really ramp it up. And there could be a time when people are betting on sports in bars and train stations and saloons, restaurants, truck stops in the state of Missouri. In fact, 60 Minutes had a piece on this on Sunday night that sports betting is taking off, and it could be coming to a, quick trip near you. Is this a good development?
Not to my mind, and I see my colleague across the table is smiling like the Cheshire Cat that he is, because he has been a proponent of this for such a long time.
I want to bet that Alvin disagrees with you.
No, that's
No, I'm placing a bet.
Anytime that when you read how the states are going about trying to maximize, profits and minimize losses, all I'm seeing is the people who are trying to make ends meet. I think even, the lottery can be abused. As it has been at our house this week, I'm just uncomfortable when you put all of your revenue planning on the backs of people who are, maybe troubled by problem gambling.
Well, I hear you, but am I my brother's keeper kind of, and not when it comes to betting on a football game. I think it's new revenue that the state desperately needs. It's being proven to be a moneymaker, a tax generator, in all the states that have already adopted it. Let's not be last. We're not first, but let's not be last. And let's bring this revenue not only to casinos, but let's bring it to restaurants, and let's bring it to individual places that could help their businesses. I just don't have a problem with it.
It's sort of a finite number of people who are going to be able to, you know what I'm saying? I mean, it's like, the reason why Las Vegas is so successful is because it's Las Vegas. I mean, if you make every state a Las Vegas, you're going to see what happens.
Yeah, but the not to tell it myself, but yeah, if I could just walk, go downtown Kirkwood and place a bet in a restaurant, I would do that, as opposed to, calling somebody up on the phone and having to go through all that,
I don't mean to be too nostalgic, but I think of all the bookies that are out of business with this. Yeah. And
that's what I was talking about.
When you were talking
he
about,
went straight there.
That's his next
when you said, soon you'll be able to go in the bar and put a bet down. I thought, you can go in the bar and put a bet down now. Right. I mean, but those days are fading. Middle Earth is changing.
We got another screen.
I'm just concerned. The Cardinals and football teams talking about. I mean, I don't know. It's just strange.
You got to, first of all, let's not lose sight of the fact that the state of Missouri is in the gambling business with the state lottery. So we're in the business, and I think Alvin's right. It's a lot like the casino arguments. Originally, having a casino, remember, is going to be the boat on on some water. That it was about, it's going to be about tourism. Well, then every state in the country has casinos, so that kind of offsets that. But I think Missouri has three priorities right now in state government: revenue, revenue, and revenue. And while it's not perfect, and it has a lot of bad side effects, I don't think the state has any. It doesn't have a choice but to try to keep up with other things.
I know revenue's one thing, but I know at least two families through personal experience whose fathers bet and lost the farm.
I do too.
And the kids suffered as a result.
I understand that. But at the same time, those are, I don't want to say that they're minimal or whatever, but there are so many instances where you can say this led to that. You can buy all the booze you want, you can drive fast, you can do everything you want to do, and nothing stops people from doing that.
In 10 years, we'll not only be betting in Missouri, but but we'll be smoking joints while we bet.
Right, I
There you
hope
go.
I mean, and
Which
the
is a
same
really,
getting
which by the
revenue
way
from
is a
that.
very
Yeah.
bad combination.
By the way, we're surrounded by
Exactly.
Alvin Reid.
Not a good time.
Yesterday in Bridgeton, about 50 landscapers and lawn care operators gathered at Scott's Equipment, and they had a powwow, and they said, we cannot find workers. They've been advertising since January, trying to get locals to start mowing lawns at $14.52 an hour. Can't find them, and so they want the Trump administration to release seasonal visas, about 69,000 nationwide, so that they can get Mexicans to come to St. Louis to mow lawns for about 6 to 8 months. Should the Trump administration release those visas for the local lawn care operators?
First of all, I would say this. Yeah, okay. Anybody who can come here and work and make a living for their family, regardless if they're from the United States or Mexico, I don't have a problem with that. However, I just am not buying into I can't find any Americans that want to do this job for $14.52. I just think that there's something that we aren't. There's some point. There's just something missing. But that's all I can say.
Aren't you the one who said the labor force is not what it used to be?
No, what I said is, yeah, restaurants and all that, but restaurants aren't paying $14.52, an hour. I disagree.
I disagree with Alvin. I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I was going to say I disagree with Alvin too. I mean, I think that these guys aren't all lying.
Right, these are realized St. Louis companies
who say we can't get people
Right.
to work out in the weather for $14, $15 an hour.
These companies have no ulterior motive to be
Right.
lying. I mean, you could look at somebody like me and say that I would jump on the bandwagon because I don't like Trump's racist attitude toward Mexicans, and I don't. But this isn't about that. This is about real companies that are losing contracts, cutting back on business in our town. They're not making this up.
Can I ask a quick question? Yeah. Do you think that if I have a seasonal visa and I come from Mexico, do you think that they are going to pay me $14.52 an hour?
I don't know what they pay.
I think so.
All right, I don't.
I don't.
I don't.
Well,
You think
do.
that's
But
the
they have-
carrot? and
I
they're
think that's the
missing-
carrot. Yeah.
No, but they come back year after year.
I just don't think they make $14.52.
I think it's regulated.
You think that companies are lying to Charlie on the air?
You think they're making more?
Well,
or,
I'm just
what do you
saying.
think
that-
of
do you
paying-
think they're making more or less?
I think they're making
Yes,
less.
is what he means.
I think they make more because after overtime they're making time and a half, and it's pretty
you
well
have
regulated.
You have to remember that I think we're victims of our generation. And when we were young, we had to have part-time jobs. A lot of these kids today, I know I just said that. A lot of these kids today. I was driving down a road 10 or 15 years ago, and I saw a group of girls in a BMW convertible. I mean, anecdotal at its best, but still, it's like these kids do not have to work. You've
Well,
got
maybe they
parents
were
handing-
driving to the Burger King.
to go to work. I don't think so, Alvin. I don't think so.
All right. Hey, Bill, I want to ask you about a story that has roots in St. Louis that actually made the Washington Post and the New York Daily News and the CBS News. And apparently some guy from St. Louis in Washington, D.C. showed his fellow employees in the workplace that bagels in St. Louis are sliced like bread. So you go to the St. Louis Bread Company or Panera and you ask for a bagel sliced like bread. They put it in the bread slicer and it comes out not cut in half like it traditionally is, but cut into thin, long slices. And apparently it became a big controversy in social media where people were saying, no, that's horrible. You don't treat a bagel like that. Have you weighed in on this topic?
No, I haven't, but it's a huge embarrassment to St. Louis. I mean, the bagels are supposed to be cut in a certain way. This is like putting ketchup on a hot dog. There's certain things that educated people don't do. And I've never been anywhere where somebody said, would you slice this bagel like bread? I mean, I would go,
I have my bagel sliced like bread. I have my hot dogs lathered with ketchup.
Oh, Wendy.
And
Wendy.
I'm-
Pizza with Provel.
I'm educated, and yes, I have my pizza with Provel. My daughter said it was the talk of Los Angeles. People were emailing and going crazy, and New Yorkers were saying that the entire state, should be thrown off the continental shelf. But I think we should use this.
I'm glad
better together with bagels that are not. Something like that, right? I mean,
Yeah. Well, you
you know.
mentioned the pizza. When I moved back, I wanted to just start like a national movement because this flat pizza cut into squares. Where does that come from? You could put
St.
a
Louis.
bagel.
It comes from Marge and Ed Emo. That's where it comes from.
You could throw a bagel in a chipper And I don't think that's as embarrassing as our pizza.
Oh, Alvin, I like the way Emos does it. I do too.
I do too.
I'm
You know
sorry.
what?
Right.
God bless
Sorry,
Emos.
being a traditionalist.
Great St. Louisans.
Fabulous.
Bad pizza.
First of all, I disagree about
Totally.
that. I will disagree with you on that. I do like Emo's Pizza.
You are canceled.
And I will also say that I think it's just great that we're finally having people, if they're going to talk about St. Louis,
Right,
talk about our food.
right.
Talk about our food, bring it on.
This is
and talk
good.
about,
This
that's
is
a
good.
really good
This will be a
'cause
cottage industry.
Whatever people want to say, and a lot of whininess all the time among us everywhere about
Agreed.
St. Louis, this is a great food town, and I think it's a great topic for us. And by the way, I would
fantastic.
like to stick, even though I would never be caught dead putting ketchup on a hot dog, I do not think it questions one's academic credentials if one does that.
Well, maybe
I
Wash,
know
you
it
should
doesn't.
study it.
Yes.
Hey, let's see what people had to say about last week's program. Starting with Daryl Swearingen, who said, "Why is Joe Holloman always in Bill McClellan's spot on Donnybrook? Is he going to bring John Hamm on with him someday?" Thank you, Daryl. We also heard from Teresa Turek, who said, "We really enjoyed listening to Joe Holloman. Wish he was a regular." You can write us, care of KETC, 3655 Olive Street, St. Louis, Missouri, 63108. Don't forget those letters at ketc.org and those tweets, hashtag DonnybrookSTL. And you can always follow our podcast, Apple, Spotify, Google Play, and TuneIn. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. We sure appreciate your viewership, and we encourage you to stay tuned because Wendy and I will be taking your phone calls and reading your tweets in just a matter of minutes. So, by all means, don't go away.
Donnybrook is made possible by the members of the 9 Network.
A stormy night in Midtown, and I'm sure there will be smooth sailing on your phone calls. We had a great show, I think,
Yeah.
the Donnybrook show, the Donnybrook portion, and now it's Donnybrook Your Turn with our fearless leader, Charlie Brennan. And let's go to Madonna in Oakville. Hi, Madonna. Welcome. You're on Donnybrook Your Turn.
Hello, how are you?
Hi, good.
Thank you.
I heard of Kim Tucci's demise this past week, too. I wanted to share some information with you. I met Kim in 1964 or 65. I worked at a restaurant on Lindell right next to the Playboy Club. This goes back. I'm 77 years old. So
What
bear with me.
restaurant was it?
Tuttle House.
Okay.
We had Chuck Berry. We had all the disc jockeys on the radio station. It was a wonderful time back in the 60s. Anyway, I just want to give a heads up. Tim Tucci was a gentleman's gentleman. He was the sweetest person. He invited me to come where he worked. He was a maitre d', I think it was Al's restaurant downtown.
Could be.
He was a maitre d' there. Anyway, he was such a gentleman, such a caring person, and may his soul rest in peace.
Thank you so much for that
Thank
nice
you.
call. Thank you very much, Madonna. Thank you. Let's go to Tony in Bridgeton. Hi, Tony.
Hi, Tony.
Good evening. Yeah, my comment is about the slave labor that they're trying to bring up from Mexico. Those fellas, they only work when it's not raining. They work 16-hour days. They only get $14 an hour if they have a license, a driver's license. Otherwise, they get minimum wage. We don't really need them up here. There's plenty of young men that'll take that job during the summer, especially fellas that'll come home from college.
Well, here's the problem. The lawn cutting season starts next week, really in early April. And no, the starting salary, and this is now mandated, is $14.50 an hour. It's time and a half after overtime. And the folks who come up here work very hard. And that's why these landscapers bring them back, and they have the guys ready to come on back. And they have already advertised, not only in the Post-Dispatch, but there's been articles on this in the Wall Street Journal with Archway Landscaping of St. Peter's. And Archway's owner, B.J. Brownlee, has been on my show 7 times, and he does not get the calls from St. Louis because people just don't want the seasonal work, or the teenagers can't work in April and May. Thanks for your call.
Thank you, Tony. Let's go to Mike in St. Louis. Hi, Mike. You're on Donnybrook. Your turn.
Hello. Another great show today. I hate to contradict the previous caller, but I'm from St. Louis, and I lived in Florida for 5 years, and they interviewed a man down there who owned a vineyard, and they had asked him if he had any illegal aliens working for him, and he said he didn't know. He said, but he couldn't find any naturalized citizens to work on his vineyards because nobody wants to work in the hot weather for that kind of pay, and so he hired all Mexicans. I'd say 90% of his workforce were Mexicans, so I don't see anything wrong with bringing Mexicans here to Missouri to cut grass.
Well,
the
president hires seasonal labor as well at Mar-a-Lago. These are the H-2B visas. And these individuals pay taxes, and they also pay into the Social Security Trust Fund, from which they never collect. Okay, thanks for your call.
Thank you, Mike. You know, and you hear this, you hear both sides of this, and I have to ask whether kids our age, and not kids, I'm sorry, you know, whether young people ever wanted to work. You know, you know, we talk about this like it's some sort of a you know, a modern situation. Did when we were high schoolers, did those kids ever, did our peers ever work in the fields, or do the landscaping work? I mean, I think some of them did. I
think so. I think times have changed, and what's happened right now this year, it's the hottest labor market in 50 years. I mean, there are 7 million job openings and about 6 million people unemployed. So even if you filled if every person who was unemployed got a job, you'd still have an extra million job openings. And it's not just this industry. It's
fast food. Yeah.
It's nursing. It's software development. It's construction. I mean, we know that to be true. Okay, Wayne in Villa Ridge is next. Hi, Wayne.
Hi, Wayne.
I enjoy you guys' show weekly, every week. I think you're a little bit parochial in your attitude on better together. It seems like you guys beat up on them quite a bit. But you know, I had a relative, a granddaughter that went to the University of Minnesota, and that is the Twin Cities, co-mayors, and they seem to be well coordinated. Both sides of, they share a major university. They share sports teams. They share a international airport, and the roads on both sides in both cities seem to be more than tolerable for the weather. So I think you guys give them a hard time. Plus, on the co-mayors here in St. Louis, that proposal, it's going to only be for 2 years. That could be a plus. I mean, the mayor of St. Louis and the person, you know, the county representative, not mayor, whatever it is we call them, but they know the insides and outs of their particular locations, and learning to merge those together for 2 years could be a plus.
Thanks for the call.
Overall, I think you guys are really hard on better together, and it seems like you enjoy teaming up on them.
Yeah, Wayne, I feel like a lot of people aren't asking some of the questions that are asked regularly, weekly on this particular panel. And I work for a network, and we have one of our headquarter locations in the Twin Cities, and they have a very distinct boundary in my mind between St. Paul and Minneapolis. And it's very different from what is being proposed here, at least to my thinking.
Oh,
but,
yeah. I mean,
yeah,
Minneapolis and St. Paul are two distinct cities
Yeah.
surrounded by about 230 different municipalities in about 16 counties. And they're not co-mayors in the Twin Cities. You got the mayor of Minneapolis, you got the mayor of St. Paul, and they have two different police departments.
Precisely.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Wayne. Let's go to Dave in Defiance. Hi, Dave. Welcome. You're on Donnybrook. Your turn.
Thank you very much. Appreciate your show. And kudos to Alvin. He's a strong supporter of horse racing, and I'm probably one of the biggest horse racing fans in the state of Missouri. And they're letting all this good money slip by as I travel over to Collinsville, over to Fairmount Park to bet on the horses. And if you wish to have a harness casino combination track like up in Anderson, Indiana, Hoosier Park, the sky's the limit up there. They're really doing well.
Thanks for the call.
That's all I got to say.
Of course, that's not what they're talking about. They're not talking about horse racing on the Missouri side. They're talking about mostly online sports gambling, which I wouldn't have a problem with if it was mostly the DeWitts and the Rockefellers betting. But I think most of the guys betting will be making about $22,000 a year with 3 kids, and I just think there's better use for their money.
And I'm right there with you with horse racing. Oaklawn Park in Hot Springs, Illinois. Very enjoyable weekend. Thanks, Dave. Let's go to where, Charlie?
Sean in Highland. Hi, Sean.
Hi.
Yes, I just wanted to say that, the migrant workers do not make the $14 an hour. I've worked in a wholesale nursery. They usually average $9 to $10 an hour, and they work harder than anybody else. I was a delivery driver making $17 an hour, and I'm not saying that I didn't bust my butt, but I will say I was in an air-conditioned truck most of the time. The migrant workers are out in the field busting their butt. When I was an over-the-road driver, it was the migrant workers that would have my 53-foot trailer unloaded in 30 minutes. Anybody else, they wanted to take their union breaks and sit around and smoke their cigarettes. So I'm all for the migrant workers coming up here.
Well, I don't know how long ago as you worked with them, but this year it's mandated by the government. It's $14.50, and it's all regulated because you can't pay someone on a seasonal H-2P visa $9 an hour. It's not your choice.
We thank you, Sean. We do have 3 tweets from the Twitterverse. At Annie Marie Berry, I've been involved in a few charities, and every time we sent a request to Kim Tucci for a donation, he never failed to donate. Godspeed. Thank you, at Annie Marie.
Boy, that's nice. Heard from T. Luft. Alvin Reid just said the most blasphemous thing I've ever heard in a while. Emo's Bagelgate. That's funny.
Agreed. At Craig Riggins, Kim Tucci could have been mayor of St. Louis in perpetuity if he had wanted to. This city and region has lost a great ambassador. Rest in heaven, Kim Tucci. Thank you very much. And your tweets are also welcome. Hashtag Donnybrook, STL.
I'm just sorry he's not here to see those. Hey, let's go to Mary in, Harry. Harry in Augusta. Hi, Harry.
Harry's gone, I think.
Oh, Harry's gone.
Harry's gone?
No, I'm still here.
Oh, Harry is. Sorry about that.
Hi,
no,
Harry.
I'm not gone. I wanted to emphasize Charlie's point that landscaping workers and students don't really, that's not the same thing because, as he said, in April and May, but also in September and October, they need people out there cutting lawns, doing landscaping work, and certainly out here in Augusta working in the wineries. And students are not available for that work. So it's really mixing apples and oranges to even compare it to student work. That's all.
Were students,
Oh, no.
Harry, were students ever available? Or has it always been?
Of course.
Okay.
Of course. A lot of people cut lawns
when they were off school or in their neighbors' yards at nights. But these landscaping companies have big commercial contracts, and they need people out a lot during the early spring and the late fall. So it just doesn't work. But I did want to say I also grew up in the south side of Chicago with not far from Bill McClellan, and they cut Pizza Square there too.
Oh, okay, good enough. Hey, thanks a lot.
Thanks, Harry.
I ran into one guy, his name is Jack Lane. He runs stages in Kirkwood. It's the theater, and he told me that he used to pick strawberries growing up for summer work. But I don't know too many people who did that as kids.
No, because when I was a young teenager, it was just becoming very enjoyable and very vogue to go out and pick your own strawberries. I mean, that was legendary out at Hellwig's Market in what was Gumbo, now Chesterfield Valley. So thank you, Harry.
Mike in Marlboro. How are you, Mike?
Hi, Charlie. Hi, Wendy.
Hi.
I just wanted to make a quick comment on sports gambling. And I'll tell you what, I'm completely scandalized at how the Missouri Lotto and the Scratchers are continually advertised. And it's okay. But when a person like myself wants to put $20 in a football game, it's illegal. Now, in regard to raising taxes, I mean, if you want to use revenue, what I say, tax guns. I don't like guns, so tax those. But anyway, when I put $20 in a football game, I have a 50-50 chance of winning. But if someone plays the lotto, buys a Powerball ticket, you know what the odds are, the Scratchers. So that's my comment. I think I think it should be legal to let me do something that I feel I know what I'm doing, and that's one reason why, although I live in St. Louis, I'm a big New England Patriots fan. They cover the spreads. Thank you. I enjoy your show. I listen to you, Charlie.
Thanks a lot. Really appreciate it, Mike. Thank you very much.
Sorry to hear about Gronk. It's a tough loss for the Patriots. Let's go to Georgia in Clayton. Hi, Georgia.
Hi, thank you for taking my call. It's just a comment about the bagels. When I was a manager at a retail store here in St. Louis and had to do morning meetings for the whole store, the managers would provide out of their pocket, whatever refreshments. I always got the bread slice bagels and served that at all my morning meetings. They loved it. And it went a little further that way, but they'll slice them regular or they'll slice them the bread slice. But we used them for business meetings often.
You bet.
So it was great. And also, I love emos. I mean, but that's a St. Louisan, so what am I going to say?
Absolutely.
But I thank you for taking the call, and I appreciate your program. Really love it.
Thank you. Thanks a lot.
You're a fine American. I don't know what's going on with Alvin. I think we need to have him followed. Something's not right there. Thanks, Georgia.
Hey, Dan, how are you?
Pretty good. How are you doing today?
Good.
I'm calling. I just wanted to express my mistrust of this Better Together deal. St. Louis is already together, and I don't know if you've lived in St. Louis at any time at all, for any length of time at all, North St. Louis does not get the services and the money and whatnot as South St. Louis does, and South St. Louis doesn't get what West St. Louis does. And there's some argument about, they're not the people that pay the taxes, so there's some validity to that. But, I look and I say, well, St. Louis is already a single unit, and you see that division. What's going to happen if we just get bigger? And I don't see politics as changing just because some guy comes along and says this is a great idea, let's just get bigger. So I'm very mistrusting of that. I don't think politics is going to change, and I think all that's going to happen is those that have the money and have influence and the power are going to get the services that they want, and those that don't aren't. I don't think the solution is going to come from above. I think the solution comes from the grassroots. And then about the bagels, I think all the argument about the bagels is ridiculous. I think, the only important question is the bagel hot or is it cold? That's all I'm going to say. Thank you.
How is it at your house, Dan?
Pardon me? I like them hot.
All right, there you go.
I do not like cold bagels.
Another fine American. Thank you, Dan. Yeah, I think the bagel thing is actually kind of fun. It's a fun distraction in the middle of all of this Better Together conversation. I'm with Dan. I think there are so many unknowns, and this is so very important, and maybe baby steps rather than.
And it's all top down.
Yeah, oh,
it's
every
not
bit
grassroots
of it.
at all.
No, not at all, and that's part of the problem.
Okay, I think it's Parker's turn. Hi, Parker.
Hi. Thanks for taking my question. I just wanted to highlight with Better Together, nobody's talking about the elephant in the room, and that elephant is the sundown provision for the city earnings tax. No one has mentioned any method of replacing those earnings for the city of St. Louis, and for it to be gradually weaned means a very slow and torturous death for the city of St. Louis. Can somebody speak to that, please?
Well, yeah, they're going to eliminate the earnings tax 10% a time over 10 years, and then it'll be gone, but it's close to $170 million a year currently, and how that's going to be made up, I'm not sure, because I don't see where they're going to get the savings by not eliminate. They've already promised they're not going to eliminate any city jobs or any county jobs, and they're talking about taking the sales tax from county municipalities and then covering the city's earnings tax loss. And I don't think it adds up, because those cities in the county are already using that sales tax for various services. So it does not add up whatsoever. And Ray, in a recent column in the Riverfront Times, asked the leaders of Better Together to delineate, specifically how many police officers are going to be cut, how's the system going to work, and there were no answers.
They weren't able to do that. And I wonder if anybody has asked the leaders of Indianapolis and Nashville if they had it to do all over again, because we're talking about a good bit of time has passed since they consolidated.
But they didn't consolidate like we're going to.
Right, that's what I mean. It's a totally different world, and this is a very different process.
Yeah, Indianapolis is not one big city. They've got burbs like Carmel and others.
And so does Nashville.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, Parker. Let's go to Jerry in Clarksville. Hi, Jerry. Welcome to Donnybrook. Your turn.
Thanks for taking my call. I'd just like to say that as far as bagels in the morning go, you haven't had anything any better to dunk than a bread slice cinnamon crunch bagel, and that really makes the cup of coffee go well.
We know it well. It's really good.
Yeah,
You're absolutely right.
It is, unfortunately.
Put a little butter on that, cream cheese. That's
you
fine
don't look
dining.
like you've had butter or cream cheese in 15 years, Charlie Brennan.
I
Who
have.
are you kidding?
I just had some Vito's pizza tonight. That was pretty
true.
good.
That's true.
It was not cut into squares either.
Thank you, Jerry.
Okay, Annette. Hi, Annette in Oakville.
Hi, Annette.
Hi. I am calling about the Trump granting the visas, and I think it needs to be done. We have had numerous landscape jobs done in our front and backyard the last couple of years, and I think that they do a great job. They clean everything up, and we have used other companies with local kids working. We don't get the service. They leave mud daubs all over the sidewalk, all over. I just feel like these people need the money. They're coming up. They're going to get the money, $14.82. I don't believe there's a landscape company in St. Louis that would short pay them. And I like bread slice bagel. I think they go further. And I also like Emo's Pizza, the square beyond compare.
God love you.
Annette.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Righteous. Right on. Right on, Annette. Thank you.
Taking a stand on the issues of the day.
Nobody is jumping into the ketchup fray with me, though. And you are also in the ketchup aisle.
I love ketchup on a hot dog. Always
Thank
have.
God. Bill really hurt my feelings. So thank you. Where are we going? Mike in Lemay. Hi, Mike. Welcome. You're on Donnybrook. Your turn. Mike? Mike going once?
He left.
Yeah, I'm here.
Oh, there he is.
I'm here.
Hi, Mike.
Yeah, I wanted to comment about the lawn service companies here in town. I used to work for a number of years for several different apartment complexes, and we hired a lot of different companies And I had several people that actually worked for me, had worked for these companies prior, and they were fired because they weren't going to get paid a decent wage because they could pay these Mexicans a lot less. Some of them are even paid under the table, so they don't even pay taxes. But they treat these workers like crap. They work them long hours, and they might, usually they got one fellow that is like a lead man. He speaks English. So if you need something specially done, you got to go through him. But the rest of the crew, don't hold your breath on them believing that they're going to get paid $14 an hour. It ain't going to happen because these companies they're scoundrels. They're scoundrels. Now, there's a few companies that actually have Americans working, and they get paid a decent hour. But a lot of these companies, I wouldn't trust them no more than I could throw them.
But is that what you heard reflected?
No, well, are you saying that the president who hires these seasonal workers, is he a scoundrel who has ripped these guys off?
Well, I don't believe the system's going to work the way they say it's going to work.
Okay, here's the deal.
Because I've seen the opposite.
Yeah, now you might be talking about the illegal undocumented workers, and there are those workers from Mexico as well, but these are legal workers who get seasonal visas, and there's about 100,000 of them a year, something like that, and they've already released 30-some thousand. They're looking for another 69,000. They're pretty carefully tracked. Their wages are pretty carefully monitored. They're all registered, and I think it's a little different from what you're describing. I think you might be describing undocumented work in the United States, and we know there's a lot of workers in that category. Thanks a lot for your call. I think it's, was that Bob in Bridgeton? This is Bob in Bridgeton. Maybe that was.
Hi, Bob. Robert.
Yes. I'd like to make my comment. The last time that they brought up a crew of workers like this, we had a major storm here in the city of St. Louis and county, and they couldn't get enough local workers to do the roofing, a lot of the roofing work. So they brought these crews up. Well, what happened was they worked hard, and they got paid, and then they supplement their income with theft and with crime and with drugs and with prostitution.
Are you talking about the locals or the immigrants?
I'm talking about the workers. As they're working at your property, they're casing it. They steal they come back after they're done working and steal everything they can get their hands on, and they caught them. There was a whole apartment complex full of lawn patio furniture, bicycles, barbecue pits. They had a caravan of stolen pickup trucks from here to Mexico. They can steal your vehicle and get to Mexico in 16 hours before the police even get it on the APB bulletin.
Was it covered in the media, Robert? Because I don't remember that story.
Well, it was covered. It's been several years ago. It was 10, 15 years ago when we had that major storm.
Oh, okay.
But what they do is, they work, and they case the property, and they steal everything they can get their hands on. And they sell the drugs and the prostitution. We don't need it. We don't need it.
I think that's a generalization, and if you've got examples of that, you should go to the authorities, just like you would if someone was born here and living in St. Louis and committed those crimes. God knows we've got locals who commit crimes as well. Thanks for your call. Dawn's in Mineral Point. What do you think, Dawn?
Hello.
Hi, Dawn.
Hi, Don.
Yeah, I was just want to make a comment about the migrant workers. Did you ever hear what they call kickbacks, which has been going on for years? In other words, if they pay them the $14 and something an hour, well, then they kick so much back to their employer for employing them. So, it's something to think about. It does go on, and it's been going on for years. So that was my comment, okay?
Thanks a lot. Well, and again, if you have evidence of that, you should bring that to the authorities. Allegations are one thing, but evidence and, demonstrating that to the proper people is another thing. I think that's all the time we have.
I think that is what we were going to try to get to Peter in St. Louis. Peter, we hope that you will try again next week. We appreciate it.
Thanks so much for joining us, everybody, and have a good evening. Thank you. See you next week.
Good night.